You never give up gritty attitudes. Like, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. And we will never be counted out. Because I know that sometimes it sounds like just a word when we talk about being resilient.
Dollars before I get into why it took me so long and to make a video, why this and that. I told y'all going into this game that the Fever was going to win. I was one of the people that did not expect them to lose this one. Go back and look. I told y'all they was going to win. I didn't think they was going to be down by 20 and come back and win. Kelsey Mitchell immediately erupted. But, guys, it took me a while to make this video because I'm trying to get my thoughts together and gather my emotions because my second favorite player on the team is done, and that is Sophie Cunningham.
The WNBA drama.
Man, the WNBA drama just hit peak reality TV. New video came out, and suddenly Stephanie White is in tears, just totally broken down. And it's all because of Sophie Cunningham and this whole lawsuit situation. They really teamed up to mess with her head. I mean, seriously, we're talking tears, total chaos, and lawyers, all wrapped up in one messy package. If you thought this league was just about the game, well, this latest update proves it's also about big-time meltdowns. Wow.
It took a Hercules-like effort from Kelsey Mitchell in the second half of the game to bail out Stephanie White. My God, it took overtime for the Indiana Fever to beat the worst team in the league. They're now 6-27. We're whipping the Indiana Fever's asses for 3 quarters.
But here's the thing. This was never just about the game itself. This whole mess just spiraled into what felt like a street brawl, not professional basketball. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just playing defense or trying to score. She suddenly became the victim of something that looked way more like a WWE move than anything you'd see in a league that's supposed to be about fair play. Forget actual basketball plays. This was a straight-up trip and collapse. One moment she's competing, and the next, a grown adult is just sprawled out across her leg like it's a bed.
Dirty, dirty Bria, of course. It had to be a dirty, dirty Bria. I would really hate to see ya in a dark alley. Dirty Bria Hartley back at it again with her shenanigans. And this time around, she had her eyes set on one Sophie, the trophy Cunningham. Sophie, get well soon. Hopefully the MRI later today shows nothing too serious. Would love to see you back on the court.
And the wildest part, we're supposed to just act like this is normal game action. Look, no, absolutely not. That wasn't some kind of rebound play. That was a straight-up flying tackle out of nowhere. These professionals looked less like actual athletes and more like background actors in a bad bar fight movie that got cut. Seriously, if this is what passes for basketball now, then the WNBA should just give up and call itself a traveling stunt show, because nothing about that chaos looked like real competition.
And I want to talk about what Coach Stephanie White had to say after the game. During an interview, she said these players have something inside of them that you just can't teach. They bring it out in each other, and it allows us to get through these incredibly tough times. It gives us a chance. I'm so incredibly proud of them for continuing to believe. And that is something where I feel like the media or other players have said that the Fever have locker room issues, and we even heard that last season. It seems like this core group, since DeWanna Bonner has departed and she is no longer with the team, it seems like this group really has come together, and whether they are winning or losing, they do have a sense of togetherness.
Sophie was targeted, plain and simple. This was not some accidental thing. That whole oops, I lost my balance act isn't fooling anyone anymore. Every single person watching with 2 eyes and a replay button saw exactly what went down. It was a reckless lunge, designed to leave her crumpled on the court. If intent could scream, that whole collision was just shouting it out loud. And what's even worse is the shameless way they're trying to brush it off like it was just a tough play. A tough play? Please, that was an actual assault with sneakers on.
Sophie Cunningham. Oh, man. I got to tell you, this victory, it came with a big, big, big price. Bria Hartley, let me just start there because we've got Sophie Cunningham's sister and mother weighing in on the league, and Bria Hartley right here. This is Hartley right here coming
she tries
in.
To slide over right there, and Hartley just kind of falls
and
and
she
crushes
in on the knee of Sophie right here.
She went down hard and was,
and that was it.
That's like she tried
Sophie
to slide
was
over
upset,
right there, and Hartley just kind of falls
and right there once again into the
knee.
knee. They had to pull out towels to sort of cover the situation up. Bria Hartley getting absolutely destroyed by every.
Seriously, imagine training your entire life to be in top shape, only to end up as a crash pad for some frustrated opponent who thinks body slamming you onto your knee is defense. Sophie didn't sign up for rugby, she didn't audition to be a human floor mat, but here she is dealing with an injury, while the person who did it just walks around like it's totally normal. If that's not insane, I don't know what is. And now, let's talk consequences. Because in any normal league, if you throw yourself onto someone's leg and risk their career, you don't just get a pat on the back. That player, Hartley, should be writing checks for every single one of Sophie's medical bills, plus interest. Plus, there's the big question of accountability in the league. Suspension isn't optional here, it's absolutely mandatory, and not some weak little slap on the wrist where you sit out one game and come back. No, it needs to be a real, you're gone as long as Sophie is gone kind of punishment. An eye for an eye, a leg for a leg. If Sophie is watching games from her couch, then Hartley should be right there with her, remote in hand, instead of suiting up and pretending nothing happened. That's the only way this punishment actually fits the crime.
Indiana Fever with a hell of a comeback versus the Connecticut Sun. We're going to get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the ugly. Prayers up for Sophie Cunningham. One half of the Blonde Bombers. Sophie, the trophy, is done for the season with a horrific lower leg injury. I don't know if it's her knee. I don't know if it's an Achilles. It looked bad. She's going to be done for the year. I don't know how much longer the Indiana Fever can continue to survive with these injuries. I just have to be honest. I got to be real. We lost Sydney Colston to a torn ACL. Ari McDonald broken bone in her foot. Caitlin Clark has played like 12 games all year or something like that. Dewana Bonner scammed us. I mean, it's been a complete shit show, to say the least. It's been a shit show.
So, the WNBA has a pretty simple choice here. They either protect their players, or they just jet that they've become a league where reckless tackles are actually part of the highlight reel. But let's be honest, when the game on the court starts looking more like organized chaos than actual basketball, then calls to just disband the whole thing don't sound that extreme anymore. I mean, why even bother with the charade? If games are gonna be more about injury reports than box scores, then what's the point of keeping the lights on? Fans show up to see basketball, not to watch Sophie Cunningham get flattened like she's in a demolition derby. And you know the craziest part about all of this? The way Hartley landed on Sophie's leg, you'd think she was going for extra points in gymnastics. If there was a judge courtside, she might have even scored a 9.5 for her form. But the penalty for blatant assault would have dropped that score to 0. Sophie, on the other hand, isn't just dealing with the pain of the injury, she's carrying the burden of having to prove that her suffering wasn't just a normal part of the game.
Where Sophie Cunningham went out in the first half. And that was such a huge blow for the Indiana Fever because Sophie Cunningham has been somebody, she has been the glue of this team since Caitlin has been out. She is playing so incredibly well during the second half of this season. She plays hard every single night. She's super tough. She doesn't make excuses. Like, she is somebody who has really held this team together, and seeing her go down in the first half, like, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what it was at first when I saw her went down.
And that's just the insult piled on top of the injury here. It's not enough that she had to limp off the court. Now Sophie has to listen to a whole parade of excuses about how these things just happen. Listen, these things don't just happen. Intentional recklessness happens. And until the league actually grows a backbone and admits that, this whole cycle is just going to keep going. Meanwhile, fans are left shaking their heads, wondering how something so obviously dirty can just be overlooked. If this exact same mess went down in the NBA, you'd see suspension headlines everywhere by tomorrow morning. But in the WNBA, crickets. Maybe a super weak statement. Maybe a fine that wouldn't even cover dinner at a decent restaurant. It's absolutely laughable. No wonder people are fed up. If this league wants to keep even a tiny bit of credibility, this is the moment to stand up. But instead it looks like they're totally fine letting it all slide. The irony here is just staggering. Sophie should be making headlines for her amazing gameplay, for her shooting, for her hustle. Instead, she's the headline because someone decided to use her as a crash landing pad. And the whole time, the guilty player just walks away with hardly a scratch on her reputation. It's almost comical how backwards this has gotten. The victim is in the spotlight because of pain. The instigator is in the spotlight because of excuses. And the league spotlight, it's dimmer than ever.
Save this team today. And I told y'all, go back to the video I posted last night. I told y'all Bria Hartley is a dirty player. She's no different than Dejanay Carrington. It just doesn't get as much publicity because the Connecticut Sun stink. Point blank, period. She's reckless. She injured Sophie Cunningham, and it is a travesty. Stephanie White, you better go and you need to be buying Kelsey Mitchell food all week. You need to send her a personal masseuse because she saved your job tonight. Yeah.
The longer this whole thing just drags on, the louder the calls get to just scrap the entire operation. Because really, why are we still pretending this is a professional league if there's no professionalism anywhere to be found? At this point, even calling for the WNBA to disband isn't just some crazy hot take anymore. It's actually starting to sound like the most sensible solution out there. If the league can't even enforce basic player safety, then the entire foundation just collapses. What you're left with is pure chaos, just pretending to be a sport, and that chaos, it's not entertaining at all, it's exhausting. Fans aren't tuning in to see carnage. They want buzzer beaters, not body slams. They want highlight reels, not medical chart. If Hartley can just throw herself on someone's leg and get nothing more than a gentle talking to, then what's gonna stop the next player from taking it even further? What's next? A steel chair, hidden under the scorer's table. At this rate, nothing would surprise me. This isn't a league anymore. It's a liability. And until that changes, don't be shocked when more and more people start talking about shutting the whole thing down, because the second the spectacle becomes more about lawsuits and medical bills than actual basketball, the WNBA stops being a sport and just turns into a full-blown circuit.
Is driving in. Sophie Cunningham, or Kelsey Mitchell comes down. Sophie Cunningham overhelps, and Bria Hartley just kind of plows through her leg by the looks of things. So I need to see where she plows through. She kind of plows through the knee. And Sophie's holding like her patella. She's holding her patella. It does look like it's a patella. It's a patella injury. Normally people will hold higher in their knee if it's a knee ligament injury.
And unfortunately for Sophie, she was the main act in a circus she never even signed up for. And as if Sophie getting absolutely bulldozed wasn't outrageous enough, the referees just stood there. Seriously, like confused mall cops watching a fight break out in the food court. Whistles in hand, stripes on their backs, yet somehow totally useless. They didn't blow the whistle, they didn't give a technical foul, they didn't even flinch. You'd think they were just extras hired to stand around for ambience, because when it was time to actually enforce the rules, they just went missing in action, like the Wi-Fi at a cheap motel. The refs didn't do a single damn thing. If this is what officiating looks like, then they might as well replace these clowns with cardboard cutouts holding whistles. At least cardboard wouldn't insult us by pretending to actually watch, and what's more, the commissioner completely owns this disaster. When the people in charge set the tone that accountability is optional, you end up with refs who treat blatant assaults like they're just background noise. When the commissioner shrugs, the refs shrug. Sophie gets carried off like a casualty in a sport that's supposed to be about athleticism, not just survival.
So we were talking about a couple things when it came to Stephanie White, right? And one of the things were, does she really care about winning? Now, she looks very effusive, right, on the sideline, giving a lot of energy, looking like she cares, getting pissed off. It was times where Caitlin Clark even had to hold her back from yelling at the refs, right? So I would think she wants to win. I don't think she's trying to throw anything. Now, I can admit, when it comes to the end of the game, her rotations, her deciding who to play and who not to play, it does make her look a little bit enigmatic.
Yeah, you can put all of this directly on the commissioner's shoulders. This entire mess is just a trickle-down embarrassment. If the leadership actually cared about protecting their players, none of this would have even happened, because the refs would know, without a shadow of a doubt, that ignoring a reckless takedown like that is basically career suicide. Instead, the message they're sending is clear. Do nothing, say nothing, and just collect your paycheck. In literally any other league, one player collapsing on another's leg would immediately trigger whistles, stop the game, lead to ejections, and probably a press conference about player safety. But in the WNBA, this league has been begging fans to take them seriously for years. But how can anyone seriously take a league seriously when their refs treat dangerous collisions like they're watching paint dry? Fans don't pay money to see officials turn their backs on total chaos. They don't tune in just to watch a commissioner make up excuses about unfortunate accidents.
Stephanie White's best friend, Carolyn Peck, been? And where has the Indiana Fever are a more dangerous team without Caitlin Clark conversation gone? How come once the Indiana Fever suddenly stop that 5-game win streak, lose 3 of their last 4, how come Carolyn Peck has suddenly stopped showing up on TV? How come that narrative of the Indiana Fever are more dangerous without Caitlin Clark, why has that suddenly stopped?
They tune in for actual basketball, and what they got instead was Sophie Cunningham being used as a landing strip with absolutely zero consequences. That's not basketball at all. That's negligence playing out on national television. The commissioner could have totally made this right with one strong statement, one bold punishment, one clear sign that the league actually values its players' health. But no, instead we get complete silence and a bunch of empty words. And once that message is out there, good luck trying to convince fans otherwise. If that's what they call natural, then maybe I've totally misunderstood the whole idea of sport. Natural is defense and offense battling it out. Natural is sweat and hustle. Natural is players hitting shots, not hitting each other's joints. What happened there wasn't natural. It was pure negligence wearing a referee's jersey with the commissioner's silence as its shield. And here's where it really starts to get ridiculous. If Sophie's injury sidelines her for a long time, the ripple effect doesn't just hurt her, it hurts the entire team, all the fans, and even the competition itself.
To see her go down, to see, like, it's just emotional, guys. Just, I'm hella mad. Hartley need to be suspended on a major level completely. Probably she's at this point, she's more dirtier than Dejanay Carrington. Just the countless of dirty plays she has been doing over the last couple weeks has just been remarkable, and it's shocking that she's not suspended. Sophie Cunningham was getting attacked from the opening part of this game. Let me pull up something here real quick, guys, but I am hella mad, bro. Sophie did not deserve any of that happened to her today, and it is very, very unfortunate.
Man, that's a whole franchise cornerstone just sitting out. And why? Because some referee was too scared to blow a whistle, and a commissioner was too lazy to enforce any kind of standards. Can you even imagine being that incompetent and still cashing a commissioner's paycheck? If incompetence was an actual sport, the WNBA's leadership would be undefeated champions. The whole situation just feels like a complete masterclass in failure. Step 1, a player recklessly injures a star. Step 2, the referees pretend they've suddenly lost their vision and hearing. Step 3, the commissioner does her best impression of a mannequin, saying absolutely nothing while the entire league just crumbles around her. The problem, the disease, it's right at the top, rotting everything below it. You simply can't expect referees to enforce rules when the leadership doesn't enforce accountability. You know how they say the fish rots from the head? Well, the commissioner's head is practically a landfill at this point. If fans are furious about this, it's not just because of one injury. It's about years of this kind of nonsense just piling up with no resolution.
Understand what she's doing. I've been saying it for the past couple games where I'm like, man, I'm just not understanding why you're not playing this player, that player. What's up with the rotation? I find myself doing this a whole lot. So at some point, I have to say, yeah, she just has to get out of her own way when it comes to rotations, who you're playing, who we're getting the ball to when the hot hands are going. These things are kind of confusing. Now, my biggest example will be Chloe Bibby. Now, I've been talking about Chloe Bibby for a good amount of games now, and the thing is, the Dallas game, yes, they lost, but she shot 100% from the three.
And now, because of a complete lack of action, the commissioner has actually managed to turn Sophie Cunningham's injury into a referendum on whether the WNBA even deserves to exist at all. That's how terribly this whole thing was handled. Because at the end of the day, basketball is supposed to be about fairness, about following the rules, about competition that stays within the lines. But what we just witnessed was pure chaos, and it was basically given a blessing from the very top. The refs didn't enforce the rules, the commissioner didn't enforce the refs, and the result? Sophie is left broken, while the league just pretends it's all part of the sport. That isn't basketball, that's a betrayal. Fans aren't stupid, you know? And when this keeps happening, the WNBA won't even need to officially disband. It'll just collapse under the sheer weight of its own incompetence.